Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Starting Over channel. Thank you for joining today. We're starting a new series called What and Why Are We Doing This? I think when you start anything new, it's very important to establish a context and a framework that helps people understand the journey that you're taking them on. Why are you starting the journey? And what where's the journey going? And what's in the journey for the people that are going along? So that's what we're doing today. Um, I'm going to be in this dual setup. Please bear with me. I felt that this format allows me to talk, but also to share a visual, structured view of what we intend to say to you. So I hope you enjoy it. Um, the title of the video is A Passion for the Underdog. So remember, the channel is called Starting Over. This is a community for people who have experienced brokenness, have experienced adversity, have experienced loss, pain, and anything in between that has resulted in brokenness. Typically, people who have felt vulnerability and felt defeated and failed at something. So, in that context, one feels like an underdog. And this channel is for the underdog. I have a history of being an underdog in some aspects of my life. Today, as I speak to you, I am an underdog. It's very painful, um, but there's hope for the underdog. And that's the ultimate aim of this message and of this video. So let's carry on. What does it mean to be an underdog? It's someone who's at a disadvantage, who's expected to lose. Disadvantage loss. Someone with little status in society. It's someone who has experienced adversity or is in a position of inferiority and who has experienced or is a victim of injustice or persecution. Some other names for the underdog: you are the weak one, the weaker party, you are the victim, you are prey, and that's the perspective of the person who pounces on you. You're a loser, you are the scapegoat, you are the little guy, you are the fall guy, you are collateral damage. At times, some of what lands us in the status of being an underdog. So you are an unintended consequence. There's a thing happening and an adversity. So it was not directed at you. You just happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. So you are collateral damage in that situation. You are used as a scapegoat. So someone else is to blame for something. They use their power to make you the scapegoat. So you see that that's all underdog, people who have power over us in any given context. Someone then pens you and mocks you and calls you a loser. The person who's pouncing on you deliberately targets you as prey. So there's unintended pain and adversity that leads in us becoming an underdog, and at times the context and the situations we find ourselves in lend us or lead us to becoming underdogs. But you know what? Despite however you have landed up being an underdog, God loves the underdogs. The Bible is full of stories who were underdogs. Some of them started out as they, on the surface, they even looked like they were in positions of power, but actually they were under, they were being used by the enemy, by the devil, as weapons. So it's like all humans, we are all created by God, but at some point you can deliberately, consciously and unconsciously open yourself up to be used by either God or by the devil, because there are two opposing forces that we cannot escape. And so when you are the underdog being used by God, you are at the receiving end of someone else's pain who's being used by the devil to pounce and oppress you into underdog status. You see, sometimes the very people being used by the devil don't even realize that they themselves are underdogs, because once he has used them, and he will discard them. And so I think that's why God deliberately used murderers, prostitutes, people who had very bad reps, who were redeemed by God from being the oppressors of underdogs to being the lovers of underdogs, and the advocates for underdogs. We see that with Apostle Paul, with David, so many examples. And so I think being an underdog speaks to the fact that we were created by God for specific purposes, and then came another force that used people to then oppress us and fight us from achieving the purpose for which we were born and purposed. The Bible says in 1 Corinthians 1, verse 27 to 28, God chose the lowly things of this world and the despised things, and the things that are not, to nullify the things that are. But God chose the foolish things of this world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of this world to shame the strong. So it's not to say being strong is evil, but in the context of the world we live in, where good things, good qualities like strength, etc., wisdom, are God given qualities, the enemy has perverted them. And that's why God says that in the world, wisdom of the world, strength of the world is shamed by the fact that God will use the underdogs, you know. Another version from the Amplified Bible says, but God has selected for his purpose the foolish things. He has selected. We have been chosen. So you might look foolish, you might look weak, but we've been chosen to shame the wise, those that think they are wise, according to the world, not according to God, the perverted wisdom. And God has selected for his purpose the weak things of the world to shame the things which are strong, that are strong. God has selected for his purpose the insignificant base things of the world, and the things that are despised and treated with contempt, even the things that are nothing, so that he might reduce to nothing the things that are, so that no one may be able to boast in the presence of God. I think just reading this reminds us that to have wisdom, to have strength, all those things are good. But when they are perverted, they try to take the place of God. And so when God uses the underdog, as an underdog, you know yourself that I didn't get myself here. I'm weak. I am foolish. I am rejected. I am nothing. So if God uses me to achieve something of significance, the glory can only go to God. And because we were created to worship God. That's the position, the best position to be in order to be useful to God. And so while the underdog has an undertone of negativity in the world, in the eyes of God, he searches and chooses and looks for the underdog. And he uses the underdog for his purposes to accomplish his purposes on earth. So I thank God that I am an underdog and have been an underdog. So who are society's biggest underdogs? So I can only speak the context of my life here in South Africa. The underdogs in my context are children, girls and women, black people. In fact, it's the vulnerable groups that have been exploited and treated badly historically. This has happened in the Bible, it has happened in so many contexts throughout history. It's not to say there are no other categories of underdogs, elderly, people with disabilities, etc. But I can't relate to those categories. And so, because this organization is targeting a community that's within something that I understand and can work with, I've selected those. Now, imagine if you, as one person, we're all three in one person. You're a child who is a girl and who is black. Imagine. I was once that unfortunate, and I'm still bearing two of those labels and carry the wounds and scars of the three burdens when I had all three on my shoulders. And that's part of what this journey is about, just to acknowledge. So if you are in a position where you are a black female, please know that we see you. You are at home here and you are the community that we want to support and work with. So, this story or the journey that we are embarking on, um, I use trees a lot as a reference. So I say here, it all started with the tree, right? So the positive side of the journey started with the tree. Tree, my pronunciation, forgive me, tree. On day three of creation, is documented in the book of Genesis, chapter 1. God tells us that trees were created amongst other vegetation after light, sky, earth, and seas were created. Or in fact, light and sky were created on day one and day two. Earth, seas, and vegetation and trees were created on day three. And it even says in verse 29 that God gave us some trees for food, you know. So there were benefits, good benefits that were intended for trees. And then there's one special tree that God told Adam and Eve after He created man that we were not supposed to eat from it. And Eve, our beloved ancestor, chose to ignore God and ate from that tree under the misguidance and lies of the enemy, of the devil. And that's what landed us, I think, as the female race in trouble. Because from then we got judgment. The part of the judgment is that we would be subjected and be under a man. There's a lot that was said by God in the Garden of Eden when he before he kicked Eve and Adam out of the garden. So our adversity started in the garden. It with the tree, right? And then we will stay with the tree analogy to expand and take our journey forward. So a tree is going to feature prominently throughout your time with this community. So there is a model that was created called the pair of aces. So ACE stands for, there's two meanings: adverse childhood experiences and adverse community environments. And basically, the logic here being that underdogs came out of environments and contexts that resulted them in having adverse experiences. So there was adversity of the environment, in the environment, and you as a child were put there, and then the adversities of the environment resulted in you having experiences that were very adverse and led to pain and to you landing up as an underdog. And look, there are people who have gone through life. We talk about big T traumas and we talk about small trauma. I think trauma and stress are things that we will encounter. It's just part of the human experience, but it's not healthy and good. It was not part of God's original design for us to experience big T traumas, and worse off to experience them simultaneously. That takes a toll on us as human beings. So yes, that's what this is talking about. We will expand on this as we go through the healing journey. So I say here, imagine being born with so many odds against you. Because you don't choose your environment. I didn't choose to be black. I didn't choose to be a woman. I didn't choose to experience a lot. I didn't choose to have an alcoholic mother. I didn't choose any of the different things. I didn't choose to be born in an environment where there's patriarchy. There's so many things that environmentally have been set up against me that have then resulted in me being hurt and feeling tremendous pain in the world that I'm existing in. And yet, countless of women and girls get up every day to courageously face and overcome the hands that life has dealt them. And they keep falling. If you're falling or don't believe you can overcome, we saying here at Starting Over, we will share the tools, knowledge, and wisdom we have gained to help you as a woman, as a girl child, so that you don't walk this journey of starting over alone. And we're saying here, we are products of other people who held our hands and walked us through the journeys that resulted in us overcoming and conquering. And that's why now part of what this platform is about is about giving back and helping those who are still struggling. And one of the best analogies in the Bible is that of God being a shepherd, where he leaves 99, the 99 sheep to search and find the one. So every single person is important. There's no one, you're not just a face in the crowd. Every single person is important. So no one is meant to do it alone. Again, no offense to men and boys. I've never had brothers growing up. I found out subsequently in my adulthood that I've got a brother for my father's side, but on my side, I don't have a good understanding, and I did not grow up with great grandfathers or with a father figure. So my perspective of the male situation is just I don't have it. So I can only speak and help a community of people that I can relate to. I'm a mother to three girls. So for now, our focus is on the girls and women. And mind you, our belief, and contrary to toxic feminism, we don't believe that the future is about just empowering the woman or the girl child. The future is both male and female. And we believe that all deserve healing, all deserve to be restored. However, there is another community out there for men and boys, and we can find it and share details of it. But it's just not my ministry. Where have we gotten our mandate from? Our mandate comes from Isaiah 61 in the Bible. And you can see here that it says, "The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim the good news to the poor, underdog. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, underdog, to proclaim freedom for the captives, underdog, and release from darkness for the prisoners, underdog, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn, underdog, and provide those who grieve in Zion, to bestow on them a crown of beauty for ashes, oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair." Um, they the aim of this is just to show you that the Bible speaks to exactly this, and this is what inspired me when I first read this. I just knew that this is what I want to do. I want, and it speaks to my journey, because I have seen God giving me beauty for my ashes, the oil of joy for my mourning, and the garment of praise for my spirit of despair. And so um, you can see here that it's not just about the healing portion, it's about also the rebuilding of ancient ruins and the restoration of devastated places and the renewal of ruined cities. So that speaks to focusing on not just the past, but also building for the future. And that's the journey that we want to take people on um, here at Starting Over. As you saw in Isaiah 61, there are clear calls to action, and I've already touched on them. Again, back to the tree. So, our logo was inspired by the pair of aces and just the fact that our journey started in the Garden of Eden as women, because we ate the fruit, our ancestor ate the fruit. Now we are depicting here a woman who is overcoming, her hands are open. She is got healed roots, you can see at the bottom, and she's fruitful, and she's whole, there's wholeness, and she's victorious. So our journey and us speaking to the tree, linking with Isaiah 61, is what this is what we want to help the underdog with. So there's stages to this process. So you move from complete brokenness, loss, to becoming an overcomer, and that is progressive. There's different stages to that. Ultimately, you are stopping the bleeding and you are starting the recovery process. That's what the overcomer journey is. From the overcomer journey, you then set the foundation for rebuilding, and you start conquering. And conquering is now focused on the future, and making sure that firstly you're present, you are thriving in the present and building for the future. And you started, you are recovering or have recovered, and now are now thriving and rebuilding and restoring what was lost. The building process you started in overcoming is now yielding fruit as a conqueror, because you've built good foundation. Now you have a new vision for the future, and you really have a new start. So that's what this is about. That it's You can't put yourself under pressure to start um, conquering from day one. You have to start out the journey, overcome bit by bit, stop the bleeding. All of those are victories. Start your recovery, and then you move towards now having a great future, a good present, and a great future. And this is just a view of how typically we view the journey for an underdog coming out of that status of being an underdog and becoming an overcomer and a conqueror. Can pause the video and read through these. And basically, the term we use for people who've joined this community is you will no longer be. You leave the term underdog at the door. You may still have experiences of an underdog in certain aspects of your life, but the fact that you are on the journey, you are starting over and you are resetting whatever aspect of your life, you become a resilient overcomer and then graduate to a resilient conqueror. You know, my story, I want to summarize it because I don't want this video to be longer. I think the context is to say that the underdog narrative does not start and end in your childhood, in the childhood trauma, even though that pair of aces diagram speaks about childhood traumas. There are teenagers going through those, still contending with those environmental factors and experiencing those adverse experiences. There are adults, whether early adulthood, mid, full grown as adulthood, and midlife, which is where I am. I will unpack more details. I just wanted just to first say here, I have experienced being an underdog in different ways at different stages of my life. And while you can conquer and overcome and move from graduate from being an underdog in terms of your environment, but then emotionally, you need help. Financially, I'm going through an underdog financial episode right now in my grown age. Can you imagine? And it's so painful. But the other day, I just dealt with a breakthrough in my spiritual walk and in my emotional, where I overcame and am a conqueror in those areas. But right now, in the financial area, I am overcoming, but it's really, really beating me up. And I'm trying to move to conquering, to fully overcome and full recovery so that I can start conquering and getting my investments and all these things building for the future. And because I'm older, the pressure is so bad. And so I know what has led me here. There are things that were in my control that led me here. And I know that there were things outside of my control that led me here. But that's a story for another day. Again, as I said here, there's different elements. So you can conquer uh, physically, you might be contending with big problems with your health. You're experiencing underdog, having underdog experiences in your health as a grown adult. And that's something you have to work on. And could be related to your career, could be related to your relationships, it could be related to your growth, your knowledge, your skills, and as I said, the environment. So I guess what I'm saying, guys, is while you can graduate from underdog status in one element of your life at one stage, you will then have to conquer the next stage. If you think about the Israelites, the promised land was not one piece of land. They had pieces of land. They had to um, displace the Jebusites, the Hittites. So it just shows that there's different. And remember, bigger levels, bigger giants. So you keep going like this. You go up, you go down. And I guess that keeps us humble because no one fully arrives. So, the best we can do is to share our conquering and overcoming stories for the areas where the stages of life where we've overcome and the areas of life where we have conquered and overcome. So, that's what this was about. Thank you so much for listening.